Hello guys, welcome back. So this video I will start from international human rights. In 1948, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that is UDHR, as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and nations. Now you see, if it's international, that means it will be uniform or common or same for each and every person around the world. So, and that would be agreed on and applied on by each and every nation of this world. Okay, so that was adopted in 1948. This is very important, underline it please. United Nations General Assembly adopted it in 1948, which is known as Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now there is a homework for you as well over here at this point. You need to find out the secretary of United Nations General Assembly and on what date, in which year did this part of UN came into being. Okay, and Human Rights Day, I already told you, I guess 10th December. Universal Declaration of Human Rights provides and defines the various kinds of human rights that are applicable to all human beings. As I said, if it is something on the international level, then it will be applied to each and every person of around the world, and it will be agreed upon and applied by all the nations as well. अगर सारे nations उस पर agree करेंगे तभी तो वो अपने citizens पर इस चीज़ को लागू करेंगे, isn't it? So these are some international set of human rights or rules that will be applicable to all humans. They include the fundamental civil, political, economic, social and cultural rights, for example, freedom of speech, assembly, conscience and religion, right to education, right to livelihood and decent standard of living, right to life, liberty, security of person, right to equality, freedom from all forms of discriminations including based on gender and race and so on. So these are the various cultural, social, political rights that are provided, that are very basic or natural in nature, and that is important to be provided to each and every human of living on this planet Earth. What are those rights? Every person should be free in its own arena to speak whatever he feels like, to express what he thinks, what his or her thoughts are, and to assemble in whichever way and wherever he wants, to practice whichever religion that he needs to, or he follow ups to, he look up to. Right to get education, elementary education, let it be that it's also an act in India. Right to livelihood, each and every person should be granted a freedom or a right to choose that what profession or what way he want to earn money so that he can buy the other basic necessities of life and he can survive on. Right, decent standard of living to maintain his dignity as a person. Right to equality, which is free from discrimination of any sort, to protect the people from the evil crimes that happen then and now in the society. Okay, so these are the various forms of fundamental and natural human rights that are required to be applied upon and to be provided to each and every human. The declaration has been embraced by almost all member states of United Nations to respect and to protect the basic human rights values provided therein. So whichever basic human right value or principles are provided in this declaration, almost all the member states of United Nations have agreed to that. Now another part of homework, you need to find out in present day how many member states United Nations consist of. Okay, find out these additional informations. From the Preamble of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the General Assembly proclaims this Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations to the end that every individual and every organ of society, keeping this declaration constantly in mind, shall strive by teaching and education to promote respect for these rights and freedoms, and by progressive measures, national and international, to secure their universal and effective recognition and observance both among the peoples of member states themselves and among the peoples of territories under their jurisdiction. So, what does the preamble? Preamble is something, it can be of anything. So, preamble is just an introductory part or a brief concept of the book which you are going to read. So, an introductory part of that book is said to be the preamble, the beginning part. Okay, so the preamble of Universal Declaration of Human Rights is, this is what it is mentioning, that General Assembly had proclaimed, has agreed to these certain set of basic or natural human rights that is to be provided to each and every person of each and every nation of this world, and it has to be agreed and respected by the member states of United Nations as an organ, and the other nations as well. And if the member states are approving that, are agreeing to these standards or these principles, then it is important and it is necessary that those member states also approve these within their own nations and within their own jurisdiction. तो अगर इंडिया ने फॉर एग्जांपल अगर इनको अप्रूव किया इन स्टैंडर्ड्स को, तो इन इट्स ओन कंट्री उस चीज़ को अप्लाई करना भी इम्पॉर्टेंट है. अपनी कंट्री में, अपने जुरिस्डिक्शन में हर एक इंडियन रेसिडेंट पर इन सारे राइट्स को अप्लाई करना इज़ ऑल्सो इम्पॉर्टेंट. लॉ को सिर्फ पास कर देना ही सब कुछ नहीं होता, उसको इम्प्लीमेंट करना भी इम्पॉर्टेंट होता है, isn't it? तो अगर आप कोई लॉ बना रहे हैं, कोई लेजिस्लेशन फ्रेम कर रहे हैं, so it is important, it is as important as framing a law that you need to implement it in an efficient manner, so that the main importance or the main essence of framing a legislation is fulfilled. लॉ बना के रखते गए लेकिन उसको इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं किया, तो फ़ायदा क्या हुआ लॉ बनाने का, right? So it has to be implemented on the international and national level by various member states, and it has to be applied to all human beings in an universal and common manner. Pursuant to this declaration, United Nations adopted a series of international human rights laws on a wide range of themes, as well as those with regional specifics that bind signatory countries with obligations and duties provided in these laws to protect and respect human rights. So, if there is an agreement between two people, it is required that those two people sign over the end of that agreement. Similarly, when this declaration was passed, the member states or the countries who agreed to it, who were present at the time of passing of this declaration, they also signed it. They also put their signatures as a part of agreement to this declaration. So that is known as signatory countries. And whosoever has signed the agreement is bound by some duties or some powers that it has to perform. So similarly, when the member countries or when some countries signed this declaration, so as soon as they became the signatory countries of this agreement, they were subject to some obligations or some duties that needed to be fulfilled by those countries, and also to respect the declaration as a part to protect, to respect the dignity of human beings, and to respect the human rights or the principles that were mentioned in this declaration as a whole. In order to operationalize these rights, many countries have incorporated them in their constitutions and other domestic legislations. Now, there are various countries जो चाहती थी कि हम ऐसे ह्यूमन राइट्स को अपनी कंट्री में भी इम्प्लीमेंट करें, तो उन्होंने क्या किया, उसको अपने कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन या अदर जो रूल बुक्स हैं उनकी रिस्पेक्टिव कंट्रीज़ की, उसमें इन प्रिंसिपल्स को, इन डिक्लेरेशन के कुछ प्रिंसिपल्स को इंक्लूड किया. The international human rights practice also provides for complaint mechanisms and procedures for receiving complaints or communications, ensuring that these rights are respected, protected, implemented, and enforced within each party state. Party state means those who have signed it or those who have agreed to this declaration. So, the international human rights in practice also sees that जिन्होंने भी साइन किया था वो इन चीज़ों से अवेयर है. अगर हमने कोई नई चीज़ ऐड करी, सो द मेंबर स्टेट्स और the states or the nations that have signed to it, that have agreed to it earlier, उनको हम ये educate करें, उनको हम ये awareness create करें कि now there is an amendment or there is an addition to this document, तो अब आपको ये चीज़ भी अपने jurisdiction में apply करनी है. So you have to communicate the amendment or the procedure that you are adding it to it or subtracting or whatever the case may be. And also at the international level, the organ has to make sure that these rights and this document as a whole are respected, protected, and implemented properly by each and every member state or each and every signatory country. Few examples of international human rights treaties: International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights 1976, based on ideals of free human beings enjoying civil and political freedom and freedom from fear and want. Means they will be free, they will not be fearing from anybody, and whatever they want they can speak, like freedom of speech. Whatever they want they can express, wherever and whichever way they want to assemble they can do that. Whichever religion they look up to they can follow that, they can practice and preach that religion. Life, liberty, and security is maintained. There is equality and freedom from any sort of discrimination. Then International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights of 1976, right to education, social and cultural rights, right? That means something which is to be provided as a society. So you provide elementary education to each and every child. You provide freedom to decide that whatever sort of profession or job or occupation the person has to take up to earn some money so that he can buy the basic necessities or the other necessities to survive. Then decent standard of living should be maintained, health, hygiene should be protected, right? All these things. Convention on Rights of Child 1990, the child by reason of his physical and mental immaturity needs special safeguards and care, including appropriate legal protection. That means if a person, as we say in India, a person less than 18 years of age does not has a mind so developed that he can earn on his own and buy all the things that he needs. So he needs a care, he needs a mentor all the time, right? So as a child he needs, because of he's not so mature, he's immature, so he needs some special care, some special safeguards, protection, and that is what was mentioned in this convention. Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Now this is something related to women protection or women discrimination, which is defined as any distinction, exclusion, or restriction made on the basis of sex which has the effect or purpose of impairing or nullifying the recognition, enjoyment, or exercise by women, irrespective of their marital status, on a basis of equality of men and women, of human rights and fundamental freedoms in political, economic, social, cultural, civil, or any other field. So the main thing is discrimination against women means any distinction, any differentiation that is done on the basis of sex, obviously, because sex is defined as male and female. So discrimination based on sex that nullifies the recognition or enjoyment of women, because you are discriminating, you are showing that you are lower than the men. So that is to nullify or to impair the enjoyment of women. Convention relating to status of refugees 1954. Refugees, you must know what this term mean. If you don't know, you look up onto Google Baba. Otherwise, being a class 12 student, you must know what this term conveys. It provides legal safeguards to a refugee or a person who is granted asylum shelter in another country. A refugee is a person who, owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion, is outside the country of his nationality and is unable, or owing to such fear is unwilling, to avail himself of protection of that country, or who, not having a nationality and being outside the country of his former habitual residence as a result of such events, is unable, or owing to such fear is unwilling to return to it. रेफ्यूजी वो पीपल होते हैं जो कि अपने, क्योंकि वो, जैसे मैं एग्जांपल दूँ, अगर कोई नेशन है ए जहाँ पर मेजॉरिटी है, या ठीक है हम मानते हैं कि पाकिस्तान है, मेजॉरिटी या ऑफिशियल रिलीजन है इस्लामिक, तो अगर कोई और कल्चर या ट्रेडिशन या रिलीजन का पर्सन वहाँ रह रहा है तो उसके मन में एक डर होगा कि मुझे कभी भी पर्सिक्यूट कर देंगे, मार डालेंगे, या एक थ्रेट है, कंटिन्यूसली एक थ्रेट है कि आप प्रोटेक्टेड नहीं हो। हर कंट्री अपने देश के लोगों को कुछ प्रोटेक्शन प्रोवाइड करती है, लेकिन जब आप एक माइनॉरिटी रिलीजन के हो किसी दूसरे ऑफिशियल रिलीजन वाले नेशन में, तो आपके मन में एक डर बैठ सकता है कि आपको ये लोग मार डालेंगे या आपके खिलाफ कुछ ऐसा क्राइम करेंगे जो कि आपकी लाइफ ले सकता है। तो ऐसी सिचुएशन में आप भाग जाते हो उस देश से और एक दूसरे देश में जाते हो, वहाँ से बोलते हो दैट मैं यहाँ से भाग कर आया हूँ क्योंकि मुझे डर था कि वो लोग मुझे मार डालेंगे, वो लोग मुझे सही प्रोटेक्शन नहीं प्रोवाइड कर रहे थे एज अ रेजिडेंट ऑफ दैट नेशन, तो मैं भाग कर आया हूँ, आप प्लीज़ मुझे शेल्टर दे दीजिए, रहने की जगह दे दीजिए। तो जो बंदे ऐसा करते हैं उनको कहते हैं रेफ्यूजीज़, ठीक है। उनके पास एक वेल फाउंडेड, एक वेल एस्टैब्लिश्ड फियर होता है कि उनको रेस, रिलीजन या नेशनैलिटी के बेसिस पर डिस्क्रिमिनेशन करके उनका परसिक्यूशन हो सकता है, उनके साथ कुछ नाइंसाफ़ी हो सकती है या उनकी जान जा सकती है। तो वो उस देश से निकल कर, भाग कर, उस डर के मारे वो भाग जाते हैं उस देश से और अपने दूसरे देश में आते हैं, एंड दे वॉन्ट शेल्टर फ्रॉम द अदर नेशन सो दैट उनकी लाइफ प्रोटेक्टेड रहे। या जिनके पास इंडियन नेशनैलिटी नहीं है और बांग्लादेश से लोग, बहुत सारे रेफ्यूजीज़ हैं जो बांग्लादेश से आए हैं और इंडिया में शेल्टर सीक करते थे और इंडिया ने उन्हें शेल्टर प्रोवाइड भी किया, तो वो लोग रेफ्यूजीज़ हैं, उनके पास इंडिया की नेशनैलिटी नहीं है, वो रहते थे बांग्लादेश में कुछ सालों से, उनके पास बांग्लादेश की भी रेसिडेंसी नहीं थी, लेकिन वो बहुत सालों से लाइक व्हाट वी नोन एज हैबिचुअल रेजिडेंस, वो बहुत सालों से वहीं पर रह रहे थे। तो कहते हैं कि उनके पास हैबिचुअली वो रेसिडेंट है बांग्लादेश के, नेशनैलिटी नहीं है, लेकिन तब भी आप कुछ डर के मारे वहाँ से इंडिया आए हो भाग के, वेल एस्टैब्लिश्ड फियर होना चाहिए। एक बार अटैक हो चुका हो, दूसरी बार अटैक ना हो कि आप मर ही जाओगे तब आप भाग कर आए हो, दैट इज़ फाइन। तो वेल एस्टैब्लिश्ड फियर होना चाहिए, कोई वैलिड रीज़न होना चाहिए कि आप भाग कर क्यों आए हो और किसी दूसरे देश में शेल्टर क्यों मांग रहे हो। आई होप थिंग्स आर गेटिंग क्लियर। सो नाउ constitutional framework and related laws in India will be taken up in the upcoming video.